Okay, Carrie.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and
And
to
to
the
the
republic
republic for
which
which
it stands,
stands one
one
nation
nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice.
justice for all.
All right. Hello, everyone. Sorry I couldn't make it back in time. We'll start with the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, anything anyone wants to discuss, pull off completely, whatever?
No.
Comments, questions?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Very good. Okay. All right, we're going to go to the President and Vice President's report. The only thing that I have to talk about, and I think I saw Mr. Gully in the back, is the meeting coming up with our legislator to discuss, funding and taxes and whatever else is on our mind. I believe that meeting is next week, maybe it's 2 weeks from now. But I'll bring that back when I have time or after it takes place. Chris, do you have anything?
I don't.
Okay. All right. Caroline, you want to do the superintendent's report?
Good evening, everyone. I want to just congratulate Allie Ellis, who was just appointed to a probationary position. Allie has been here working in our E&L classroom as a teacher who was in the process of completing her TESOL certificate, and she has successfully done so. So she is being appointed tonight, so thank you. We are very, very excited to be able to have her here. In this capacity, she's done a great job, and we're all really excited to continue our work with her and improving the education program for the English language learners in the district. So thank you to Allie and congratulations if you're listening. We have a lot of updates in terms of instruction. You can see them listed in my report. We've had quite a bit going on in terms of the middle of the year assessments, the MTSS meetings to place students appropriately for support in any areas where they might be struggling. We've also completed interviews to replace the second grade position that was vacated by Mr. Morrow last month, and we'll be making a recommendation to the Board of Education in an upcoming meeting. We had some really great candidates, so it was actually a good problem to have to leave it down and find the best fit for Millbrook. So that was an awesome experience. We also had a couple of really exciting opportunities for our middle school students. So sixth grade students were able to participate in a French and Spanish presentation and lesson last week to be able to start thinking about which language they would like to take throughout their scholastic journey. So that was awesome to be able to offer that, and kudos to Ms. Nairati and also Ms. Harb for making that happen. Additionally, middle school students participated in an enrichment fair so that they can start to learn about what is offered for the enrichment classes throughout the middle school. So they were able to do that. They were able to be reminded of building expectations, the pillars of the National Junior Honor Society, so that they can start thinking about aligning their behavior to those pillars and those expectations. They got some DASA reminders and behavioral expectations and just other general building information. We've been working throughout this past couple of months with departments at department meetings and departments either by content or grade levels, and really look at areas in which students are struggling, finding problems of practice and aligning both their instruction and the MTSS process to reflect intentional choices in making progress in those areas. The E&L department has been working nonstop, so kudos to Ms. Nairati who, now that she has built a team here, with our growing population, also grew that department. And so she has some partners in this work. They've created a beautiful language acquisition chart for classroom teachers to pilot. We met actually today, Dr. Watkins, and myself with Mrs. Nairati to be able to start looking at the program quality review, which is like a 50-page document that goes through multiple tenets related to educating English language learners. And we picked priority areas that we're going to start targeting, both through providing professional development, also providing resource banks, and just really trying to streamline the process of supporting our English language learners. The secret to all of this is that what benefits English language learners also benefits learners who struggle for other reasons and or just the general education population. So it's really just solid instructional practices that we're bolstering through this work. So thank you to the E&L department for working there. We have had meetings with each department and or building leader to discuss the upcoming budget process. We've heard all of their needs, wishes, and wants, and we're able to begin building a budget that reflects as best we can, trying to make those things come true for our students. There's some celebrations listed there, and then a very important upcoming event, if anyone's listening, February 11th, our 10th grade students who are interested in learning a trade will take a trip to BOCES Career and Technical Institute to learn about their program offerings. And a couple of other really exciting things that have come more recently than my report. We've gotten information about the potential of opening a school-based health clinic. So we're working on looking at that. It would be a full-service clinic that could potentially run within a school building and in parallel to the school nurses. So it would actually have an outside provider that would be present if this was something that we looked to pursue in the future, but I got a lot of good information. And so they would be able to actually deal with the types of medical illnesses that you might visit urgent care for, but it would actually be able to be housed right here on campus. And so parents would be able to access all of that and then have like a prescription, for example, called into, you know, the Millbrook pharmacy. So it really would be able to bring some accessible health services even closer to home if that was something that in the future we would make the decision to pursue. We got the list of school art awards winners, sorry. So we have a whole bunch of students and we'll be inviting them to a meeting, but I wanted to just say congratulations to our art teachers, fabulous work in promoting that. And then something that I'm really excited about, which I will be learning more about in the coming weeks, but Elliot and I sat in on a presentation yesterday from Pat Rizzo at BOCES, who is their grants writing coordinator, about the 2025 Renew America's Schools. So I have a packet for each of our board members so you can just see, but there's a significant amount of money that's available to school districts for energy efficiency and some specific upgrades and whatnot. So, you know, the timeline may not match exactly our intention for capital work, but it could replace debt if the program proposal was approved. Something that's very interesting is that there needs to be a minimum of 10 schools, 10 K through 12 buildings included in this. So it would essentially be a consortium grant involving Millbrook and at least one other school district. But a couple of school districts in the county are interested, and there's no geographic boundaries to like how close the school districts would have to be to make up those 10 schools minimum. So we were even thinking about looking to some of our vendors that we were working with for the capital project planning, because if they may have some other school districts they're working with, and they're working through, you know, developing a capital plan elsewhere, we might be able to piggyback and write this one grant together and see, no matter how much it is, it would offset something, right? So we're gonna try and chase it down and see where we can get from that. But I just thought it was a really interesting opportunity to share.
Okay.
And that is all I have.
Okay. Hey, Caroline, go ahead. Caroline, did on the BOCES thing, why wait till 10th grade?
Because the students don't start the BOCES programming until 11th grade. And so it's about the program offerings that they'll be selecting for next year. But there are other opportunities for them to become informed in the BOCES. This is just the official trip that they take to the CTI
Okay.
campus.
Yeah, I mean, I'd really love to see us expose the, fifth graders. I'm not sure what the right age is, but to give them an idea that, of what is available, even if they're just, wow, that's really amazing to see a house in a classroom. For the younger ones, I'm sure they have some kind of program, but that's why I was curious about whether we were going to extend that beyond 10th graders.
They do. They have like a summer program, and I can't remember the name of it, but they do have summer programs for like middle school students, and there's some other opportunities specifically. This just happens to be coming up in 2 weeks, and this is like the big 10th graders go. They visit the program they might be interested in, get to see BOCES in action kind of thing at the CTI campus, and really get familiar with where they could potentially be attending a program if that's what they choose.
And one other question about BOCES, and I'm sure you probably don't have the answer right offhand, but how much space does BOCES have? If we needed space for something, how much space is, go ahead.
BOCES is bursting at the seams. They would more likely need our space than be able to provide us with space.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Caroline?
One just came to mind. So I know the 6th and 7th graders are choosing their language and electives pretty soon. Do you know when the 8th graders are going to be exposed to what their selections might be for high school?
Do you have that date, Cynthia?
I can get that information. I can ask Kelly for you.
Okay.
And I can send an email, follow up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Caroline. Oops, I gotta go find the agenda someplace. All right, let's see here. Budget development update, Elliot. Elliot, did I just?
Hang on, just put it up on screen for 1 second.
Okay, no, I just thought maybe I'd knock myself off.
Then we're good. Kelly, you wanna start?
No, you can go.
All right, so we're gonna start with just an overview of the timeline for the budget. So as Caroline said in her report, we've already met at least once with every budget builder and building administrator, department head. So in the last couple of weeks, we've had those meetings. Just last week, the state published their first version of the state aid runs as part of the governor's proposed budget. So we'll be sharing that information tonight. It's just some of our very foundational work. At the February meetings, we'll be rolling that into our overall revenue and expense projections and a very, that first look at the expenses as we're planning them for 25-26. And then the follow-up meetings from there will just be adding to that presentation where we'll talk about the tax levy limit once it's finally calculated and any major additions or deletions from the budget for the 25-26 school year. And then just for the board's information, we lay the calendar out all the way through May. So you'll see March 1st is our deadline to notify the state what our tax levy cap is going to be and then what our tax levy is intended to be. We'll continue to bring presentations to the board for final adoption at the 3/25 meeting. And then we'll have to publish our first legal notice in April and have our budget development presentation and the formal tax report card being transmitted in April. And all this leading up to our May 20th, 2025 vote date. So the details are there if anybody has any questions. Very similar timeline and process to last year. So Our budgetary goal right out of our strategic plan initiatives is the district ensures that our annual budgets and spending programs include a focus on maximizing efficiencies, supporting and maintaining programs, leveraging resources, and minimizing waste. So far, we've had our budget builder meetings. We continue to review our budget codes, categorizations, and consolidations, reflecting present day needs and expenses. So as the board members may remember, as we move into the revenue and expense projections, specifically the expense side, you may see line items moving, and that's because we're creating new budget codes for different categories of expenses that just seem to go together. Last year, one of the first ones that we did was we established a graduation code or family of codes specifically for the graduation events at the end of the year and related expenses to that. This year, we're establishing a family of codes specifically for the E&L department. As that department continues to grow, we've added staff, we've added resources, we're adding supplies, and we really wanted to of the E&L population and that department as a whole. We want to start allocating funds and tracking funds year over year for that program specifically. So there'll be some movement of dollars. Again, we're not adding dollars to create a program. We're just shifting them from general building budgets into this specified E&L budget. So that's just an example of some of the continuing evolution of our budgetary process where we're just trying to make things make sense in the budget, things that are logical for not only where we spend the money from, but how to track it over a long period of time. So as a general review, again, our primary revenues come from real property taxes, right? We get less than 30% aid from the state. Where our aid rate is around 23%. So the lion's share of our revenue does come from real property taxes. For fiscal year 24-25, our real property taxes were budgeted at $24 million out of a general fund budget of $34.5 million. So roughly 78% of our revenue came from taxes in the 24-25 school year. The balance of that comes from state aid. So we start with the state aid conversation because we can't control it. And so the rest of our conversation tonight is going to really be what are we expecting to get from the state? And then I'll touch a little bit on the calculations we've done so far in terms of our tax revenue projections, but those numbers are far from finalized. And so I don't want to share the hard figures today, but I do want to give the board just a general overview of the direction that we're moving into. So again, January 21st was the date they gave us the state aid funds. I'm going to put them on screen right now. This is again what we anticipate for aid. So this is a moving target. I'll show you some charts, some multi-year data to kind of give you an idea of what to expect. One of the big conversations that's been out there in the world is foundation aid, right? So there was a lot of apprehension around foundation aid. We were concerned that foundation aid was going to take a hit. The state has been entertaining this recalculation of foundation aid. The long story short here is the governor guaranteed that she would be proposing a minimum of a 2% increase to foundation aid. And so you can see that right on the top line. We're expecting and hoping that they keep it in the legislative adopted budget, the 2% increase to foundation aid. So that's the good news. The challenging news right behind it is some of our other aid categories have been reduced. And so while the top line number shows an increase of $57,000, almost $58,000 in state in foundation aid, we're down $39,000 in total aid. So, you know, as one pocket gets full, the other pocket gets a little bit empty. And so we're just about even with last year in the projection, but I want to caution the board and there's a couple of things here that I want to be very specific about. So we created this graph, this chart here to just tell the story of the multi-year data. So you can see if you're looking at the 4 columns all the way to the right, that right half of the chart, you're going to see our estimated aids and our actual aids. And I did that to show the board that we didn't get everything we were promised last year. And that is typical of our state aid package. We have come up short anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 between what the state promises us and what we actually get year over year. Not a huge number, but when you're talking about a district whose 1% of our general fund budget is around $300,000, $340,000, a $300,000 fluctuation in our aid package could effectively turn out to be almost 1% of our total general fund. And so there's a couple of line items here that we anticipate not being as robust as they show. And one of them is a clear example is that the universal pre-K dollars, the 280,800 is a maximum based on enrollment. Our enrollment hasn't brought us to that maximum in the last 3 years, so it's usually somewhere closer to 140, not 280. Again, I'm kind of throwing a lot of numbers at you, but if you take just the UPK anticipated reduction and the 39,000 that we're not gonna see, right out of the box, we're almost at roughly, a 0.5% to 1% of our general fund. So that 4% rainy day money isn't really 4% when almost one whole point of it can be consumed by an unanticipated reduction of state aid. But again, the numbers that feed into this, I showed the same list last year. The consumer price index for 2024 calendar year was listed at 2.95% versus our allowable tax levy growth factor of 2%. Last year, that number was over 4%, and our allowable tax levy number was again 2%. So you'll hear people talk about the 2% tax cap. This is not a firm 2%, but this is where that 2% number comes from. It's how much the state allows us to plug into our formula to grow the tax levy. And again, it's inhibited well below what the CPI is for the calendar year. So while foundation aid is up 2%, our total state aid is down almost 1% at $39,000. And there's just an illustration of what that looks like. In 2024-25, our estimated versus actual aid received was short $212,000. So again, 1% of our budget is about $340,000. And just the fluctuation in what the governor proposes to what the legislative adopted budget gives us could be every bit of a whole percentage point of our general fund budget.
Elliot,
Yes.
the transportation, can you explain that a little? Is that based on enrollment or
Transportation aid?
a transportation including summer?
Yep, so we've actually been working with the Office of Pupil Transportation at NYSED to update our contract information. Our treasurer sent an updated transportation calculation to the state this morning, so we're hoping that that number does go up in the next projection. But I can't speak to exactly what lends itself to the decrease.
Does it have anything to do with the schools that are basically saying they're not doing this electric conversion?
I can't speak to that. I believe it's specific to us and the fluctuation of our own transportation contracts. We did spend a little bit less than we budgeted for in transportation last year, so there's gonna be a reduction of the following year aid. I don't have the numbers to correlate that right now, but I don't believe it has anything to do with anybody else other than us. And one of the things that we're working on is cleaning up our transportation, our reported expenditures and the updated contract amounts with the state.
Okay. Anything else for Elliot?
Thank you.
So in our next presentation, we'll share some of our budget building priorities. And we'll also share with our first look at our revenue projections for the other categories that are not the big ones. With a tightened up state tax cap calculation where there's a couple of variables that we haven't plugged in yet that might move that needle a bit. And then we'll give the board the first look at our expenditure projections as well.
Cheryl, do we have a firm calendar on when people have to submit that want to run for election to the board?
Yeah, it's always in April, that date that they have to submit it to me by. I want to say the 16th, but that might not be true. Where around there, where I have to have the final submission.
Okay, so and they can't start picking up those packets now, right?
No, I don't have them ready yet, but in February I'll have them available.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then once I have them available, I'll put them on the website as well.
Okay. Very good. Anything else for Elliot? Thanks, Elliot.
Thank you.
All right, Amy?
No, it's Samantha.
Oh, hi Samantha, sorry. I just
Yeah, it's
assumed.
okay. Hi, Perry. All right,
How
good
are you?
evening, everyone. So since I last seen you, there's a lot of updates in student services, but I'm just going to highlight the most recent. So for school counseling, counselors have completed a self-reflection on the successes and challenges encountered during their major clarity and Alden Place elementary lessons thus far. This data will be shared at the upcoming advisory council meeting that will take place on May 22nd and presented during the annual program review to the Board of Education at the end of the year. Our counselors also conducted a survey with students to assess the progress of their Alden lessons, and they identified areas of improvement. And they've also identified focus areas on moving forward in future lessons. And this information will also be shared at advisory because these were one of our goals of our school counseling plan for this year. As for our suicide risk assessment district-wide, I've compiled a committee recently where we met to revise the district suicide risk assessment protocol. And a comprehensive adaptable packet has been developed and will be implemented district-wide for all suicide risk assessments. And I would like to thank the Suicide Assessment Committee members, SRO Michael Freer and Superintendent Caroline Hernandez, for all of their hard work and their collaboration on this important project. As we look into SEL, we just had a 12-COP virtual parent webinar a couple of weeks ago. We did have 9 participants who attended, and 4 out of 9 completed a survey that I sent out on the webinar's effectiveness. And some of the key takeaways were topic requests for future webinars that included college admissions process, bullying, sexual harassment, and human trafficking, dating trends and social media impacts on children. And what I did was I evaluated my planning for next year to bring in presentations that surround this. And I also reached out to the parent who requested the college admissions process and let her know about what types of opportunities we have available that our school counselors can support with, because they're always readily available to support with that. And then you can also find on my student services website, I've updated a sub tab that has substance abuse resources for our families and even students. So when you get a moment, take a look at that because there's some great stuff that was shared with us from 12-COP. As for important dates coming up, we are having our 2nd annual wellness fair on April 28th. From this list that you see, I've actually recruited more members. We have about 21 vendors, which is 11 more than last year, who plan to attend. And that's just from me networking with health and wellness vendors through PDs I attend, or even relationships that I've built in my role here as supervisor of student services. And we're also integrating this year a department meeting, so a staff wellness retreat with mindfulness, deep breathing, yoga, and wellness resources for our staff. And I'd like to thank Dr. Watkins and our administrative assistant, Marissa Jenna, who has been supporting me with the coordination of the department meeting event. As for upcoming trainings for our staff, on February 5th, I will provide training for administrators and district office staff on McKinney-Vento duties and responsibilities pertaining to their roles. On the 24th of February, I will also deliver the same, except tailored for teachers, training for McKinney-Vento, which will focus on the law and challenges faced by students experiencing homelessness. And on March 24th department meeting, Dr. Watkins and I will guide teachers on SEL benchmarks and strategies for incorporating them in their instruction. And then lastly, I'd like to highlight and thank PNW BOCES for providing me with a lot of recent trainings and a continuation of trainings that surround a school counselors forum. So I have been able to build a lot of relationships there. An SEL circle and CSAG training. And I'd also like to thank Dutchess BOCES because I will be training their community-based school. I will be attending their community-based school committee where I'll be able to collaborate with other administrators and staff on different types of community resources that'll be readily available to our students, our staff, and our community members.
Okay, very good.
I have two questions. For the Too Good for Drugs program.
Yeah.
Are those for the 6th grade, is that on those 2 days during seminar?
No, so it's starting, so seminar 6 is split up with the way the schedule works is it's every other day to make sure all 6th graders receive seminar 6. So those are the first days that it's starting for both dates, but it's continuing into the end of the school year. So it's about a 10-week program.
Okay, so all sixth graders.
All sixth
will-
graders will
Okay.
receive it, yes.
Okay.
And this is something that they've received in the past. But we're last school year, so now it's happening in the spring of this year. And our fifth graders completed it in the fall of this year.
Right.
So we did fifth grade and now we're doing sixth grade.
Okay. And then my other question, last year at the wellness fair, there was at least one student group. There might have been more.
Yes.
I remember the SAD club. Are student groups going to be involved this year?
So that's a great question. The SAD Club was there last year and so was the youth leadership team. And that was with support of our Cape counselor Marjorie, who's no longer with us. But I've been working with Colette Watts, who's our SAD Club advisor. And I actually went to SAD Club last week to speak to the students and invite them to the wellness fair and give them some details and information on what to expect. And then I also connect and network regularly with the Northern Dutchess Coalition coordinator, and that's Andrea Cucci, and she works with the Northern Dutchess and school districts to support youth leadership. And I've also have recruited them most recently yesterday, our president of that committee. She has agreed to be the person who will speak for the youth leadership at the wellness fair with Ms. Cucci's support, and she's gonna hopefully bring students as well.
Great, thanks.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, where are we going next? Financial warrants, financials and warrants. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right, thank you. We have a letter of resignation for the purposes of retirement for Bill Blaney. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All right, comments, questions? I just like to say thank you to Bill for all his years of in so many roles within the district. So thank you very much and good luck on your retirement, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay. Next is a donation from the MEF. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I just wanted to say thank you to the MEF. It's always nice to know they're there. Any questions or comments?
Thank you very much.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. Next is a public comment section. Any comments online, Cheryl?
Yes, we have, one comment from Peter Doro.
Is he, did he send that? Because we remember we had gotten a set of questions from Tim Colby when he was mayor. But he sent it as the mayor. Did this come from Pete or
No.
from?
This is personal, his
Yes,
personal
okay.
email, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so, first off, why isn't the online question form available an hour? Why is the online question form only available an hour before your meeting? For a board who supposedly wants to hear more from the public, two no votes aside, of course, you make it pretty difficult. And to that, we post at least 4 to 6 hours ahead of time on the district website. And then he continues to say, anyway, according to SED's own figures, K through 12 enrollment is down 27% or over 340 students since 2012, 2013. So why hasn't there been a discussion of either one, reducing the size and or scope of your proposal? Or alternatively, how about some out of the box thinking, such as closing a school or pursuing a more proactive strategy. Like, for example, modular buildings, look no further than Pine Plains in this regard, and he attached a link. And Putnam Valley seems to be proposing a lot more improvements for a lot less money. Again, a link, about that. Instead, I listened to the 1/7/25 board meeting and was intrigued by a 40-minute discussion led by your attorney on the merits of having middle schoolers write emotional letters and the legality of planning pro-capital project information with friendly journalists. Also heard community disagreement with the board's proposal characterized as misinformation. What I didn't hear discussed at all, which was quite surprising, was an analysis of why the community has rejected this twice already. No introspection, no discussion of amending your plan or scaling back your grand ambitions, no discussion of who administrators and board members, past and present, and what decisions led to the buildings being in such disrepair. No accountability whatsoever. I think it's pretty obvious the community is sending you a message. You just don't want to listen.
Okay.
And that
It
is
sounds
the
like,
only online comment.
it sounds like the majority of it is comment versus question.
Yes,
The one thing I would ask, if Pete, if you're listening, if you're only able to get in there 1 hour before, please get a hold of Cheryl and or the office, and because that should not be the case. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's at least 6 hours. Just and the rest of it, if you read the other minutes, there has been a lot of discussion about other parts of the comments. But anyway, anything else from on the internet?
no,
Okay. Anything in the room?
yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President, trustees, superintendent, board clerk, administrators. Dolly Stanford. I happen to be a Hyde Park resident in Pleasant Valley, but serve as the vice president of the Dutchess County BOCES. With apologies for the infrequencies of my visit, because I am really a neighbor just up the road, it was delightful to hear that it sounds like the BOCES is serving you well here in Millbrook, and very pleased to know that that there'll be a trip for the 10th graders. I did check, President Hartwig, we do a middle school summer CTI experience. It's a full week in late July for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So hopefully Millbrook students will be able, and I think there's a Parents' Day involved in there as well. And then very good question about space. Yes, we are bursting at the seams. And thank you for having made that happen, because the Resilience Academy now is really up and running very successfully, as is the Soul Point Center, even the Adult Learning Institute, and of course the Career Technical Institute. Now, that's not to say that our public rooms are not available. So our conference room is available, and I think our superintendent knows you've been able to attend some things there. But if indeed Millbrook were looking for a space to hold a retreat or something like that, we'd be happy to try to. I can't commit, obviously, the staff to this, but I know we welcome we welcome those suggestions. And it's lovely to be back here. I know I like to come to your Mr. Chanowski, I think it is, puts on a wonderful career fair each year, which I'm happy to attend. A couple of things just to say thank you to you and our other components, because we had input from you in the selection to fill our district superintendent vacancy. And with any luck, there will be a good interview with the Commissioner of Education as early as tomorrow. So hopefully we'll have some news for you in short order. And we are moving into, for the first time in over a decade, a strategic planning process for the BOCES. So we will be inviting trustees and superintendents for your input to help us to come up with good plans. So then just finally, yes, this is an election year. And this year there will be 3 vacancies, and I think Ms. Braid probably got a little announcement yesterday. Hopefully, there will be 3 vacancies. President Ralph Chimento and I are up and we're both running, and would be very grateful for your, first of all, your nomination in the next month or so, I think, and then on April the 22nd, for your vote. Endorsement. I'd be just thrilled to serve another term. I've greatly enjoyed the 5 years I've spent there already, particularly our the president alluded to that, our Dutchess School Boards Association Advocacy Committee, on which President Hartwig sits with me. And we go and make, we hope, compelling arguments to our Mid-Hudson legislators about the issues that are priorities for us. Obviously, putting the brakes on the electric vehicles, addressing the special education needs of preschool students, the aidable salary cap for career technical education, so that when you do send people to CTI, you get more reimbursement from the state, if only they would recognize the reality of what it takes to hire faculty. So all of these things, hopefully, to lift the burden a little off our component school districts. I just love the fact that it's a wonderful dialogue between representatives of our 13 components and the BOCES. The third vacancy is because we had a resignation last year, so if you happen to be a district like yourselves who currently do not have somebody resident of Millbrook serving on the board, now is the time, if somebody is showing an interest in serving on the board of the BOCES, to put that person's hat. So there are 6 of us, so 6 school districts are excluded, but the other 7 can nominate. It's a 3-year term. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your confidence in the BOCES. I always like to hear, I'm just an old stage manager, so I always like to hear concerns. It's nice to hear compliments, thank you, but always like to hear concerns so we could do the job better. And in closing, just President Hartwig and I had way over 3 minutes. I apologize for that, but there was I just want to thank the superintendent who sat down with us and some other superintendents when the beginning of this search took place. Your input was very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Gully, did I hear it correctly? You'd rather hear complaints than quality comments?
Compliments are always welcome and will be passed along to those who have earned them. I don't earn compliments, but no, as the eyes and ears of the BOCES, yeah, I actually welcome advice as to what we can do better, because that's what we're in business for. You're our customers, to serve you. Thank you.
Thanks, Gully. Thanks for taking the time and coming to see us too. Any questions for Gully? All right. Thank you, Gully. Anything else, Cheryl?
No.
Okay. All right. Next, we move to enrollment. No motion necessary, but any questions about the enrollment? Next is the SERS report. Questions? Okay. Next is PTO. Maybe we'll wait for Dina for next time.
Okay.
All right. Let's do MEF next.
Sure. Harry, the one thing I can say about PTO is that there is a general meeting on Monday, February 3rd, a public meeting. So since that happens before Dina comes back, I thought
Okay.
share that.
And what is the purpose of that meeting? Just sort of the review?
Sure, right. They alternate monthly between their public meetings and then their executive meetings. So February 3rd just happens to be a set
Okay.
public meeting, right? At Alden, if someone's listening, Alden Library, 7 o'clock? Yeah.
Okay.
It's,
MEF?
so, yeah, MEF. As mentioned, we're happy to fund the shirts for the science fair for Alden Middle and High School. And want to give a big thank you to everybody, all the community members that participated and donated to our annual appeal, which started on Giving Tuesday following Thanksgiving. And to date, just since Giving Tuesday, we've received donations totaling at least $8,000. So big, lots of gratitude to our community for that. I wanted to remind anyone listening, any parents and guidance counselors at the high school that MEF does award 4 $2,000 scholarships to graduating high school students. So we want to make sure that all the students are aware of that and their parents and supporters are encouraging them to apply. And then also, we've been discussing various spring, summer fundraisers. We intend to continue with the Millbrook Mile over the summer. Our first annual was last summer, and that was very successful. And then just various brainstormings going on about other smaller spring or summer fundraisers. And then also we plan to do some type of much larger event in 2026 because it is our 25th anniversary since our founding. So just be on the lookout, more to come.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Chris? Very good. Thank you, Chris. Next is, just the section on future agenda. The only thing I would say right now is make sure that hopefully you've gotten your questions into Cheryl. That we have on the 11th is the review of the responses, I guess you would say, or responders that for our request for proposal from from the legal firms. So just make sure that if you have any, sort of burning questions, because we need to get those kind of melted down into a good format that we can, judge the applicants. With that, we need to go to executive session for the discussion of the employment history of particular employees. With that, just for everyone that might be on the phone or on the internet, we will be coming back into session after that. This meeting is not over. If we decide anything in executive session or we decide that we need a motion, a formal motion, that's done in public session. So just because we're going to executive session doesn't mean that the meeting is over. So with that, do I have a motion to go to executive session?
So move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.